Good morning. I am Kumari, working as lecturer in PS Rasula College, Kakinada, affiliated to Aditya Nandaya University, Rajmahendravaram, AP, teaching CPC subject. Today's our topic is the introduction part of CPC. CPC, it is a procedure code, civil procedure code. It is 1908 code. Actually, it was drastically amended in the year 2002. It contains two parts. The first part, it defines 158 sections, and the second part, it is having one schedule and 51 orders and rules. Actually, law is divided into two types. One is substantive law and another one is the procedural law. What substantive law is? Substantive law, it is nothing but the rules, regulations and principles. The substantive law entirely, whether it is a civil one or it is a criminal one, it defines or explains the rules, regulations and principles. For example, in civil law, if we take the Contract Act, this Contract Act explains what is agreement and what are the essentials for a valid agreement and how the agreement can be made and how it can be followed, and if any violation is made by any one of the parties to the agreement, what the remedies can be given to the parties. All these can be explained under the Contract Act. If we take the example of the criminal law IPC, it explains the offence and the punishment. One section describes what is the meaning of offence, and another section it defines what is the punishment prescribed for the offence. Actually, the substantive law, whether it is a criminal or civil in nature, it only explains the rules and regulations and the remedies, what can be granted to the violation or for the things. Actually, the procedural law, it explains the procedure, how the matter can be taken before the court of law for the final justice. If it is a civil one, how the suit can be taken before the court of law, or how the disputed matter can be taken before the court of law for the remedy. If it is a criminal in nature, how the matter can be taken before the court of law for the punishment. The procedural law is also divided into two categories. One is civil procedure code and another one is criminal procedure code. Civil procedure code, it defines the procedure in civil nature. Actually, the procedure code, it does not create any new rights or new liabilities. If any dispute is arised between the procedural law and the substantive law, the procedural law cannot be prevailed, but the substantive law only can be prevailed. Actually, the object of the procedural code, the civil procedure code, is to shorten the litigation. It should not go against the good conscience, and it should not allow the injustice, or it should not allow to weave the spider web. And actually, it should not grant the relief against the good conscience for a mere procedural rule. It should not hang the sword of uncertainty on the litigant's rights. Just it can give the relief, or it can give the final justice and the conclusive justice. What CPC explains or what CPC says? CPC explains or CPC says the procedure how to bring the matter before the court of law in form of suit, or in form of disputed matter, or in form of cause of action. Actually, what the CPC explains, it explains what is decree, what is order, or what is suit, what is appeal, what is reference, or what is revision, or what is review. What rules has to be followed in disposing of the suits, or what are the essentials of a suit. All is explained under the civil procedure code. Actually, the disputed matter can be treated as the suit. The cause of action, if it is turned into dispute, then it can be treated as a transaction and it can be treated as the cause of action. Actually, the main important point to bring the matter before the court of law is the place of showing, where the matter can be shown or where the matter can be taken before the court of law. Actually, what is the competent court jurisdiction? All these are explained under CPC. Actually, the competent court jurisdiction, it means the place of showing is defined under section 9 of CPC. What it says? The jurisdiction is of two types. One is the territorial jurisdiction and another one is the non-territorial jurisdiction. Entire Indian jurisdiction is treated as the territorial jurisdiction, and outside India the jurisdiction can be treated as the non-territorial jurisdiction. Actually, territorial jurisdiction is divided into two categories. One is local jurisdiction and another one is non-local jurisdiction. The cause of action, it may be in form of the dispute, it may be in form of the properties, or in form of the family matters, or in form of the agreements. So, where the matter can be taken or where the suit has to be filed. Actually, if we take the example of the family laws and the disputed matter is for divorce, where the divorce petition can be filed, it is a big question. Actually, the rules are defined where the parties are last decided or where the party is residing at present. All these are the rules to file the suit before the court of law. This is treated as the competent jurisdiction. If, for example, the disputed matter is for properties, we can simply say where the properties are located. The matter can be filed in that particular court of competent jurisdiction. Actually, the competent court jurisdiction can be decided according to the work of the suit. Actually, what is suit? Suit, it is nothing but the disputed matter or the cause of action is turned into dispute, that it is treated as the suit. And what are the essentials of a suit? The two parties are needed to file a suit before the court of law. Actually, who are the competent parties? Here, we can say the minor is not an incompetent person to file a suit. It means the minor or the indigent persons or the unsound persons, they are not bound to file a suit before the court of law. The minor has eligibility to file a suit in the court of law, and in the name of the minor, the parents or the guardians, they can file. And likewise, in case of the unsound persons, the parents or the guardian can file in their name before the court of law, before the competent court jurisdiction, and the court can consider their matter as a valid suit. And the cause of action, it is a very important point. What the transaction is held between the two parties, whether it is for the property matters or whether it is for the family matters or whether it is for the succession matters, it is the main important matter. The cause of action, if it turns into the dispute, it can be treated as a disputed matter, and if the court take the cognizance of the disputed matter, it can be treated as a suit. Actually, where the cause of action is held and where the cause of action has arose, all these can be considered by the court of law. In taking cognizance of this suit, the court can first give a chance to the parties to discuss the matter before the court of law by first hearing. It means the plaintiff, in form of plaintiff, it means the plaintiff, he can give his written contention in form of plaintiff. Plaintiff is nothing but the written contention of the plaintiff, and the court follows the rules of the principles of natural justice. It means the adi alteram partem, and gives the other party to give an explanation or file a counter in form of written statement. So, the first step is plain and the second step is the written statement. The plaintiff, he can give his contention in form of plain, and the defendant can give his contention in form of written statement. And on these two steps, the court can send the summons to the parties to attend before the court of law. If the disputed matter is disposed before the court of law, in the first instance, no problem. But if it is not disposed in the first instance, the court can take that cognizance, and it can consider that disputed matter as suit, and it gives the parties to adduce their evidence before the court of law. It means it gives the time to produce the evidence to the plaintiff and to the defendant, and it gives the time to adduce or produce the evidence. And after adducing or producing of the evidence, the arguments can be started, and on the basis of the arguments and evidence, the court can dispose the matter. It means it can deliver the judgment. If the court delivers the judgment, and after the passing of judgment, it can pass the decree. And after passing of decree, the party in whose favor the decree is passed, he can acquire the authority or he can acquire the right for the execution proceedings. So this is the procedure to bring the matter before the court of law, and this is the procedure to dispose a matter, a disputed matter in form of suit by the court of law. Actually, the CPC, it gives the definitions, what is decree or what is order or what is suit. Actually, what is decree? Decree is nothing but the final order of the conclusive proof of that or conclusive justice of the particular court jurisdiction, but it is not a final one. Actually, by which court the justice is delivered or by which court the judgment is delivered, it is final to that court, it is conclusive to that court, but it is not a final one to the entire jurisdiction. Means the aggrieved party has the authority to take the matter before the higher courts for in form of appeal or by using of the provisions, reference, revision and review. Actually, the aggrieved party is not satisfied with the decision of the court. He can have the authority to take the matter before the higher courts in form of appeal. Actually, the court can give the time to the aggrieved party to file the appeal before the higher court jurisdiction. So, we are following the hierarchy of the court jurisdiction. Actually, if the party is not satisfied with one court's decision, has the authority to take the matter to another court's decision. The Supreme Court is the final authority to deliver the last judgment or the final judgment. Actually, what is order? What is order? And in which circumstances or in what conditions the order can be passed by the court of law. Actually, whether it is a permanent order or whether it is a temporary order, it can be delivered by the court of law. Just to take the example of injunction. It may be passed for temporary or it may be passed for permanent. If it is a temporary one, it can be in force for particular one or for particular period. If it is permanent one, it can be in force permanently. Actually, what is reference or what is review or what is revision? In what conditions the reference, revision and review can be used, and in what circumstances the party can use these provisions. So, we take the example of the revision and review. If the appeal provision is not there or the party could not go for the appeal, he can use difference of the review. And if the review, if it is a review matter, he can file the review petition in the same court jurisdiction which court delivered the judgment. And if it is a reference one, he can file the reference to the high court. And if it is a revision one, he can file the petition in the high court. So, actually, in what conditions or in what circumstances he can use these provisions, whether a minor has the authority to file a suit or not before the court of law, which section or which rule or which order can explain. And for the proper suits or for the innocent persons, whether they have the authority to file. If it is a proper suit, the court can provide the legal assistance. What is proper suit or what is indecent person suit? All these are explained under CPC. And in these circumstances, the court can enjoy the inherent powers. The section 151 of CPC defines what are inherent powers and in what circumstances or what conditions the court can enjoy the inherent powers. In which conditions they can be utilized by the court of law. All these are explained under CPC. Actually, what are the rules in disposing of the suit? The court has to be followed. Just we take the example of the res judicata or we take the example of res sub judice. Just res sub judice is defined under section 10 of CPC. What res sub judice is? It is nothing but pending before your court of law. If any matter is there between the same parties on same cause of action, these two parties has no authority to file any new suit anywhere in India on the same cause of action. This is defined under section 10 of CPC. When it can be applicable, it is explained under CPC. And section 11, it defines what is res judicata. Res judicata is nothing but if once the court is delivered the judgment or it is judged the matter between the same parties on same cause of action. The same parties or the same cause of action, they have no authority to file again anywhere in India. It is defined under section 11 of CPC. And what are the exceptions of CPC? And what is the what are the exceptions of res judicata? And what are the rules or what are the regulations defined under res judicata? All these are explained under section 11. Actually, this res judicata are having some exceptions. If you take the family matters, for passing of the order, the maintenance order, it can be again overruled by the court or same court, overruled by the same court or by another court. So, for the family matters, this provision of res judicata is not applicable. In some constitutional matters, this res judicata cannot be applicable. So, in what circumstances or in what conditions this res judicata is not applicable? All these are explained under CPC. Actually, this CPC, it is a procedure code, and this code explains what is the procedure to bring the matter, whether it is in the family matter or whether it is a property matter or any other form, whether the specific relief can be granted or the damages can be granted or the compensation can be granted. All these are explained under CPC. It is the discretionary power of the court to grant the specific relief or the injunction or the compensation or the damages. In what circumstances the decree can be passed, whether it is a final one or whether it is a preliminary one or whether it is a partly preliminary or partly final. All these are explained under CPC. And actually, how many types of decrees are there? In what conditions the permanent order can be passed or the temporary order can be passed? All these rules and regulations we can study under our CPC. Actually, this is not an exhaustive code. CPC is not an exhaustive code, but it can elaborate or it can shortens or it can shortens the litigation, and it should not go against the good conscience, and it should not grant the relief, or it should not cut the relief on a mere rule of the procedure. Actually, it should not create any new rights, and if any dispute is arising between the substantive law and the procedural law, the substantive law can be prevailed, and for the object or the concept, for the passing of the order or passing of the relief, and if we take that as a concept or an object, the two principles we must be followed. One is the matter must be in civil nature, and the another one is it should not be followed by any other statute. So, this is for today's topic, and actually we are having a seminar topic, and the seminar topic is what are the rules and principles of res judicata explained under section 11 of CPC.